Thank you very much, Bodhinaga. Is that clear, loud and clear at the back? Yeah. Thank you, Bodhinaga. A spiritual friend par excellence. So we're continuing the current theme of mindfulness is the way to the deathless. And I particularly enjoyed reading the Weekly Essentials advert for this talk tonight, because it was asking us, isn't this a series about mindfulness? Well, yes, it is. You are at the right event, at the right place, at the right time. So I'm going to be talking about mindfulness or awareness of others. So the founder of this movement, Bhante Sanghajiva'The, encouraged us to practice mindfulness of self, of things, of others, and of reality. So I'm going to begin with a case of dysentery. I thought it's a good place to start. Good place to kick it all off. And so this is a story from the Pali Canon. It regards the Buddha and Ananda, his companion, his attendant, his very good friend, doing the rounds of the lodgings of the monks. So the story goes, he came to the lodgings of that brother. So the Buddha would have been checking how they were getting along. What were they doing? Do they need a teaching? Do they need any encouragement? That sort of thing. So this is the kind of thing that the Buddha would have done from time to time. And a positive case of one of his visits was when he visited a group of monks known as the Anuruddhas. And the Anuruddhas were so closely bound together. They worked and practiced with one another so closely. Their actions of body, speech, and mind were said to be of the nature of three in body, but one in mind. Three in body, but one in mind. And in actual fact, the Anuruddhas, there was only one of the monks was actually Anuruddha. But because they were so closely bound together as a working group of monks, they became known as the Anuruddhas. This particular visit, though, of the Buddha didn't go quite like the Anuruddhas. That was spiritual friendship par excellence. But on this occasion, the Buddha came across a brother who was lying in his own excrement. And seeing him thus, he went towards him and asked, "Brother, what ails you?" And the monk replied, "I have dysentery, Lord." "Is there anyone taking care of you?" "No, Lord." "Why is it, brother, that the brethren do not take care of you?" "I am useless to the brethren, Lord, therefore the brethren do not take care of me." So this is a rather extreme example of not being aware of a person as a person. The monk had become a thing or an object to the other monks, no longer serving them, no longer of any use to them, so they were no longer willing to take care of him. And it's said that the Buddha and Ananda cleaned the monk themselves. They sort of, it might have metaphorically rolled up their sleeves. I don't know if the robes had sleeves, but they just got on with the job of cleaning him up. No question of delegating the job to somebody else. And out of their compassion and awareness of him, they got the job done. So that's a really rather sad and extreme case of not looking after somebody when they're no longer of any use or any value to. And Aristotle says that there are three types of friendship. Aristotle, a Greek philosopher, I believe. And one of those is utility. That's a type of friendship that we can foster in our lives. Utility. The other types are pleasure and friendship for the good. So this was an example of friendship based on utility until his usefulness ran out. He was no longer any use to them. So this was a real case of not seeing a person as a person. He was seen as a thing or an object. So here in this Sangha, we're not at the elevated level of the Anuruddhas, nor, hopefully, the level of unawareness that leads to somebody to fend for themselves. somewhere in between, aiming for the kind of awareness that defined the Anuruddhas. So Bhante Sanghajiva'The says there are two aspects to treating people as people, and they are communication and taking delight. Communication, taking delight. So in communication, in real communication with others, we share ourselves with our friends, we share our lives, our hopes, our fears, our past, our regrets, maybe confess things that we're ashamed of. We share the Dharma, we share the spiritual life, our tendencies and habits, ethics, meditation, the practices, what are working, what's not working. So we can share all that with each other. In taking delight, what we're getting at here is, it means that we like what we see. There's no ulterior motive. We just like what we see and what we're influenced by. It's not about what we can get from them. So we just enjoy the qualities of a friend and enjoy spending time with them. And then these two aspects of communication and taking delight, they can be combined by a practice known as rejoicing in merits. And this is a very uplifting practice that can really elevate and inspire, really improves the atmosphere. And this doesn't have to be confined to specific occasions. So recently in my own personal life, as Bodhanaga was alluding to, I left my job of work to come and work here at the centre. And on my final week, and in particular on my final day, people had some really nice things to say to me. Things that had never been said before. You know, the fact was that we're not going to see you again, so now's the time to tell you all the things we wanted to say. So there's no reason to sort of restrict it and confine rejoicing in merits to such an occasion. And I think an even worse occasion, actually, is eulogies at funerals. If that's the only time that people get to say something good about somebody is when they've gone, fully gone, well, that's a sad thing. So back to the Buddha and Ananda. I'm going to talk a little bit about another episode in their lives. And this is when they're sitting quietly together. Ananda suddenly announced, after much thought, he'd been given this topic a lot of thinking about. And he declared, "It's wonderful, Lord, wonderful. Spiritual friendship is half of the spiritual life." And Bhante comments that we can sort of think then that Ananda sat back, sort of self-satisfied, thinking, I've come out with a really good Dharma thought here, and the Buddha's going to confirm this. However, the Buddha replied, "Say not so, Ananda, say not so. Spiritual friendship is the whole of the spiritual life." So how is this so? How is spiritual friendship the whole of the spiritual life? Well, what we're trying to do in the spiritual life is to develop and to grow and to fulfill our potential. And this is best done in relationship with others. In relationship with others. To best get to know ourselves, we need to know other people. They can point out our blind spots and our hidden corners. And very often, of course, we wear a mask around other people. We're portraying a sense of ourselves that we believe in, and this is a concrete version of ourselves. Somebody else can sort of break through that mask. And of course, we do have times on our own, studying alone, meditating alone, solitary retreats. But when we come together as a Sangha, we're really ourselves. And as a Sangha, the bodhicitta can arise, this mysterious will to enlightenment that Bhante says is probably difficult to achieve on our own. So I can certainly verify that I get to know myself better in the context of a Sangha. And it allows me to ask the questions, Why is it I just don't like this person? Or why is it I like this person? I mean, now I have a variety of friends within the Sangha, and many of them, historically, I probably wouldn't have considered to be friends. They're very different to me in lots of different ways. So what that's saying to me is that historically, I would have chosen friends on the basis of Aristotle's theory of pleasure. That's one of the reasons that we choose friends. So that could have been for a variety of reasons, such as shared interests, a shared sense of humor. And certainly one of the things that I would have looked for in a friend was that they were not too critical of me. You know, the fragile ego just wouldn't take it if people started pointing out my faults. And I would start to run for the hills, quite frankly. But we're told in the Dhammapada, in the Wise Man chapter, that if one finds someone who points out faults and reproves, one should follow such a wise and sagacious person as one would a guide to hidden treasure. It is always better and never worse to cultivate such an association. So we're actively looking for people that are willing to be so aware of us and aware of our potential that they're willing to challenge us sometimes and point out where we need to make improvements. But we do need to take great care to have a balance in spiritual friendship between rejoicing and reproving. I think that's important to note. So the Buddha himself needed friends. I always find that really fascinating when I look at the Pali Canon stories, that the Buddha actually needed friends. The enlightened mind needed a friend. And so what this demonstrates is that enlightenment isn't some cold, aloof, distant experience, but it's throbbing and pulsating with the interconnectedness of life. The Buddha would have been totally aware of all of life and all the people in it. He makes it his life's work to pass on the Dharma. And it is said that he communicated the Dharma according to people's temperaments and dispositions. So his awareness of people was such, he knew exactly what he needed to say to someone, and more than likely when and how. So if you can imagine, rather than hearing one talk by me tonight, the Buddha coming in, he would talk to each one of us individually, case to case, and tell us what we need to know. So there would have been no question of liking or disliking. He met them as a person and he taught them accordingly. So the Buddha gave us an ideal of friendship. I think that's really important to highlight. He gave us an ideal of friendship. A particular poet that I love is William Wordsworth, and he said in a letter to a friend, "My friendship, it is not in my power to give. This is a gift which no man can make. It is not in our power. A sound and healthy friendship is the growth of time and circumstance. It will spring up and thrive like a wild flower when these favor. And when they do not, it is in vain to look for it." So what Wordsworth is saying in that letter is that we can't give friendship. It doesn't belong to anyone. All you can do is give it attention, time and attention. That's the basis, that's the foundation of friendship. And what can follow from that attention is connection, loyalty, trust, and love. I'm going to move on to another of the Buddha's journeys, because I want to talk now about gratitude. He came across a young Brahmin named Sigalaka, and observing Sigalaka, he saw him performing prostrations in the 6 directions. And when asked why he was doing it that way, he said he was following his father's instructions. And this was to be protected from the negative forces coming from the 6 directions. The Buddha said prostrating to the 6 directions was right and proper, but he had the wrong reasoning about it. The right way to approach this practice was to bring people to mind and regarding them carrying out one's duties. So the 6 directions, these are east, west, south, north, below, and above, which I think are described as the nadir and the zenith. And in the east, we have one's parents. To the south, we have teachers. To the west, we have our partner, or which could be husband, wife, significant other. In the north, we have friends. Below us, we have all those that serve us. And above are our spiritual friends. And so what I like about this particular teaching is it's allowed me to adapt this to practice something called a gratitude bhavana, a meditation that I do quite regularly to bring gratitude into my practice. So going around the compass, in the east we have our parents. So they brought us into this life. They fed and nourished us. They looked after our welfare when we were pretty helpless. And I understand that some people may have complicated relationships with their parents, but hopefully somewhere in there can be some gratitude for what they gave us. In the south, we have teachers, and teachers, this means education that we received when we were growing up. And of course, the teachers that they introduced us to through books and writings. Gratitude to our partner, or we could just say a very, very special friend, a good friend. In the north, we have our friends, and our friends could be work colleagues, old school friends, but this would be friends that are sort of not particularly in the Sangha. A particularly interesting direction is those that serve us, because this is so many unseen people that provide us with this really quite comfortable life that we enjoy. And spiritual friends are people in the Sangha, order members, people in our GFR groups, in our study groups, and so on. So occasionally I do this as a gratitude exercise, and it kind of covers so many different people in my life. So what is gratitude, and why is it important on the Buddhist path? I'll just introduce you to this mysterious word. It might be mysterious to some of you. Katanyuta, which is a Pali word for gratitude. And breaking this word down, it's composed of kata, which is that which has been done, particularly to myself or oneself, and anyuta is knowing or recognizing. So it's a knowing or a recognizing, or in this case, an awareness of what another person has done for our benefit. If we do not know, we're not grateful. So this is a cognitive feeling. In English, we talk of feeling grateful as in a body sensation, and very often it can be that. But Katanyuta is all about understanding or an awareness of that which is beneficial to us, or who has been beneficial to us, and remembering this. So if we don't recognize who or what has benefited us, this can be described as akatanyuta, putting an A in front of it, a negative prefix, and that's ingratitude. Now this can be caused by a few different reasons. One of those is not recognizing benefits as benefits. We just haven't recognized that was a benefit. Secondly, we can have entitlement. Thirdly, egoism or individualism. And fourthly, forgetfulness. And I do find that when I reflect on this aspect of ingratitude, that actually they're all kind of quite intertwined, and very often it's difficult to pinpoint why I might have a moment of ingratitude. There's a couple there I do want to just draw out. One of them about entitlement. And in particular, I want to go back to when I was about 6 or 7 years old. And I was asked to write a thank you letter to my grandparents for Christmas presents that I'd just received. I'm hearing a few sniggers. Some people remember that. We can't all just send a text with a Christmas present and a thumbs up. We couldn't do that in the 1970s. But yeah, I was asked to do thank you letters. And I remember my mum saying, you can go out and play or go on your bike or whatever. When you sat down and you wrote to your nan and granddad, thanking them for the present you got. Oh, Mum, but I want to just go out now. I'll do it later. No, you'll sit down and you'll do that. And then when you've done it, then you can go out. So it was quite a lot of coercion about getting me to sit down and write these letters. So clearly there was what was going on. There was a sense of Christmas presents are what adults do for children. That's what there was that entitlement that I just expected Christmas presents just to arrive. So I sat down writing them. Dear Nan and Grandad, thank you very much for the action man. I really love it. And so it went on. I might start outlining other presents that I got, but actually, after a while, once I got into the writing the letter, I found that it started to come together, and I was much more inspired, and I could feel actually gratitude coming through. But I needed that. I needed that coercion to actually sit down and do it. And I've got an example from my sort of some of my earlier life, career life. That speaks of egoism and individualism, because I had a sense of myself that I was going to make myself a self-made man. I was going to be a success in life. I was going to show the world, and I don't really know who these people were that I was going to show I was a great success, whether they were interested, and what I was going to do even. But I had this sense of kind of independence from the rest of the world, of kind of, I can do things myself and I don't need anyone's help. Thank you very much. So there was a sense of egoism regarding my desires at the time. So of course, feeling grateful is one thing. The next step, if possible, is giving expression to that, if we can. Maybe doing something in return. So we could start by creating something like a gratitude diary or a journal. I remember hearing a talk about gratitude many years ago and thought, that's a great idea. I'm going to do that. And of course, after so many days, weeks, we forget, life gets busy, and I have to remind myself and go back to it. But we can start by just noting down things we're grateful for, or people that we're grateful for. And so some people ensure they do like 3 items a day. Today I've been grateful for, or to whom. You could have gratitude moments, like Janet's mindful moments. Janet talked the other week about stopping every so many times through the day and just coming back to the experience of being present in the body at that time. So you could have gratitude moments of just stopping and remembering what is benefiting or who is benefiting me right now. Or so this is not to be underestimated as a practice, as it's really getting in touch with our awareness of others. You could be moved to do something in return. And there's this expression that I'm not overly fond of, a debt of gratitude. I'm not overly fond of that because it kind of implies to me that there's an understanding that this will be, that the gift will be repaid. And real giving is freely giving. And if one feels so moved by that gift, they may feel like giving in some way and responding. So a good example for me was coming along to the introductory course that Bodhinaga talked about. I first came along 10 years ago, and I felt so moved and so inspired and grateful to have received the Dharma. It was just felt like such a wonderful gift. And the people on the course that supported that course, I'll never forget that feeling of they were really interested in me. They were really interested in me in a way that I'd never experienced before. They remembered things that I'd said from the week before. They knew about the books that I'd been reading. How are you getting along with that? So there was something new about the way people were here. And it's said in the Buddhist scriptures that there is no greater gift than the Dharma. So, and that was my experience when I first encountered it. And it was this strong sense that it was other people that were presenting it to me. So when I was ready, I supported an intro course, and I've really enjoyed doing that as often as I can since. So a Roman philosopher named Cicero said that gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent or mother, sometimes described as mother, of all the others. So it's a really, really important part of our, we really need to be making this part of our thinking. Is the greatest of all virtues, he's saying. You know, so many other aspects of our Dharma life can stem from this awareness of what we've been given and by whom. And we can even be grateful for things that I consider sort of counterintuitive. So even when life is not going so well, we can still look at that situation or that person and find gratitude in it. So I wanted to conclude with a short poem around gratitude. This is by a poet named Sarah Bon Brannock, who says that whatever we are waiting for, whether it be peace of mind, contentment, grace, the inner awareness of simple abundance, it will surely come to us, but only when we are ready to receive it with an open, grateful heart. Thank you.